Hi students, this week in geography class we are going to talk about development again. We talked about development quite a lot at the beginning of the chapter when we looked at macro scale issues, but now that we've spent a good few weeks talking about micro scale issues also, like social identity, ethnicity, how language shapes culture, how religion shapes your ethnicity, we're going to talk about development again and how it connects or how you can overlap to better understand lifestyle and worldviews based on development and ethnicity combined. So there are some short articles that really are just collections of memes. There's a couple of word poems and visual poems videos from YouTube that I've got in our Blackboard class this week, but also an article about first world compared to third world problems that shows you a lot of images and gives you some informative, it's not snarky or mean or funny memes, it's informative memes. Sometimes they're captions with underneath a picture that tries to describe the difference in style of life from one country to the next. But traditionally, historically, in geography and other social sciences, we've used developments and measurements of development within a nation to classify and compare nations to each other regarding their advancement or lack of advancement in the modern world. So development, as you know, is the degree of industrialization that exists in a region, a place, a location, a nation in this case. So the industrialization is the human environment interaction, and look at all these other elements of Mr. Help that I've got in there. And of course, industrialization and economy involves the movement part too that I don't have written on the board here, but industrialization means you're making products, it means you're offering goods and services, and that involves movement from the place where they are produced to the people who are going to consume them. Well, that's what development and industrialization are all about. And so historically, there are some measurements of development that economists, geographers, political scientists, policymakers, other movers and shakers use when they are looking at the degree to which a country is industrialized. Many agencies such as the World Economic Forum, such as the United Nations, look at development and levels of development and industrialization as a means of uplift, economic and social uplift for people in the world. So these are some measures that have historically been used. Now we have a new measure that I'm going to talk about, a relatively new measure that doesn't get rid of these, but maybe puts a human spin to it. So we're going to be talking about that, and that's the connection between development and your ethnicity, your the stuff you focus on in the world, your culture, your focus. Okay, so gross national product, or GNP, this is an abbreviation that you're going to need to know. You're going to need to recognize this when you're reading it, not only in geography class, but other classes that you take in college, or just when you're consuming news as you progress in your education level and you look for higher and higher sources of news and content. Gross national product is the amount of goods and services that are produced within the nation or by citizens of the nation outside the nation, but the nation benefits from it. And so one thing to point out here is that corporations are considered people in economic terms, tax terms, legal terms. Corporations are considered people. So if you have a corporation that's headquartered in a nation but has factories elsewhere and produce things elsewhere, that's going to contribute to the gross national product of the nation where the corporation is headquartered. We're going to look at that next week, where I show you a video about poverty and how perhaps some of the dependency theories that we're going to cover later on this week contribute to lower lifestyle standards in one place and higher lifestyle standards in another. Okay, so gross national product, that's one measure that's been used. Gross domestic product is a different measure. It's essentially everything that's made within the geopolitical borders of the nation. And so domestic means home front, okay? So this is the nation itself. So if you can picture the outline of any nation on a map that you're familiar with, that's the geopolitical border. And so any goods and services that are produced within that, the total value of that, is considered the gross domestic product. However, A lot of economists and geographers have looked recently to gross national income because this takes a little bit more math to calculate. What you do is you look at everything that's produced inside the nation plus everything that's produced outside the nation that benefits the nation's bottom line, plus any payment that is made outside the nation. So from the nation's government to other nations. Do I have a loan that was granted to me through China and we make loan payments to that? So for instance, in the United States economy, when those loan payments are made, that comes off our gross national income because it's a cost of operations. Okay, so these are traditional measures. Nowadays, or more recently, like I said, we don't ignore these, but more recently, when we're talking about the human angle, we talk about something called the Human Development Index. I just got finished talking about this with my sociology classes just the other day. The Human Development Index. This is a measurement. Human development issues, you can say, are measured by an index that keeps track of all of them. The degree to which people have access to education, have access to sustainability of their life. I'm not talking about environmental sustainability. I'm talking about food, clean water, oxygen, shelter, these kinds of things. Education, lifespan is one of them. Style of life, or the resources that you have. So this Human Development Index looks at the boots on the ground level. It doesn't just look at these economic measures at the government level, at the macro level. This looks at what is your life experience like. And so when you've been looking at those word poems or, image poems or the memes that I've asked you to look at before you watched this, you saw some people highlighting the difference between first world and third world problems. So this is the three worlds approach to a global stratification. This is an old-timey kind of way. I've heard a lot of y'all use it in your conversations with me or written about it in your reaction papers. It's not entirely obsolete. It's not entirely antique that we need to get rid of because it's still kind of a way that we organize our idea about different countries in our minds. But first world nations are the highest level of development. Second level nations are developing. So they are in the process of industrializing, but they are not as developed as other nations yet. And third world nations are undeveloped. There either is no industry there or the industry that is there is sort of, can I say predatory? Whereas other more powerful, richer nations or corporations harvest the items of worth in a nation without benefiting the people of that nation. And so that happens quite a lot, and we're going to look at some of those development theories. But this affects your style of life. So there's a picture on one of those, I think it's the article that I've asked you to read. It's very short. It's mostly memes. But the first picture is a pair of sandals that were made out of some scraps of cloth and some water bottles. Did y'all notice that? Go back and look. It's like flattened water bottles and the cloth is tied to the little spout and wrapped around the feet so that they stay on you as you walk across the ground. Because one of the issues of human development, which is health and healthcare, wellness in general, most third world nations have issues with poverty, and you don't have shoes necessarily. And one of the most common transmitters, aside from water, one of the most common transmitters of disease in the world is dirt-borne diseases. So if you walk around with bare feet, there's some things, critters included, all kinds of pests and fungus and all kinds of contagions, there's the word I'm looking for, sorry, that can come at you through the soles of your feet, believe it or not. And so these sandals that these people have made are not for high fashion, they are for necessity in general. And so a first world problem is going to be, do these shoes match this outfit? And the third world problem is going to be, are there some water bottles that I can make into shoes so maybe I can protect myself from whatever critter's going to get me just walking from here to the well? And so these are the differences in lifestyle, the differences in culture, the differences in ethnicity that we can observe from going from one level of development to the next. But remember, even though this is a valid way of organizing global stratification in our minds, it really doesn't show us the first world compared to third world nation status and the problems. And that's one of the reasons I'm focusing on it with you now. It focuses on these economic things at the macro level, but you and I live at the human micro level, and these different first world, second world, third world countries have varying degrees of styles of life, and in some cases, poverty is so drastic that people's lives are in danger. And Human Development Index issues such as lifespan, education, healthcare, these kinds of things, are measurements of that style of life from one place to the next. So we will be looking at that this week and next week. I'll see you again soon.